What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the market moving forward and how things are looking as we have more data coming in at 10 o'clock a.m., what you should be watching for on the charts. But let me just mention that I'm not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. Anyways, for Tesla, we got this nice little push just under 216. And I said yesterday that Tesla might push a little bit higher. But once we get that push, will we get a nice bounce and try to break through resistance to get up to 220? Or would Tesla end up getting a rejection? So I called out some very, very tough resistance for the market. And so far, the market is uh, failing to break through it. So we're starting to dip a little bit right now. And whether or not we get a bigger dip will depend on some data. So for today, we just got the building permits data. This was below expectations, showing a little bit of weakness in housing, nothing too crazy. Another piece of data coming out for today will be at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. 30 minutes after the market opens, we have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report, the 5-year inflationary expectations, and the current conditions report, which could lead to some volatility. So watch this data very carefully. We'll see what this leads to, so be very, very open-minded for that. So we will see if that causes the market to dip or not, if there's less confidence by consumers. The market was pushing very nicely yesterday, but now, like I said, we approached some tough resistance, and we had to see if we could break that or not. Instead, the market has been dipping instead. Consumer spending has held up, especially as we got a nice acceleration in retail sales. That's part of why the market pumped yesterday. And besides that, I'm seeing some big news involving Peacock. They're closing a big deal with the NBA, so good news for them. A couple of things worth noting. Right now, we're also seeing some news about how we have about 780, almost 790,000 calls expiring, and over 2.4 million puts expiring for SPY. Max pain's at 536 with the 3.05 puts to call ratio. So we'll have to see what kind of reaction we get. We're barely at the 550 support, so we'll have to see if this holds up. But just know that max pain is below where we currently are. And there are a lot of puts that are out of the money. So we'll see if these market makers try to manipulate things and get us closer to max pain or not. Right now, the market expects about a 70% chance we get a 25 basis point cut and 29.5% chance of a 50 basis point cut. So that's what the market's expecting for now. As far as Tesla goes, let me go over two pieces of news before I go over the charts. Tesla's launching a textile interior option for the Model 3 RWD in Mexico. So very, very cool stuff in my personal opinion. This new textile interior option for their sedans is a very, very cool variant, and it's going to be using textile instead of vegan leather. So that's very, very cool in my opinion. It's also available only in gray, and it has really, really cool features like heated and cooling seats and other things like that. So it's very, very cool. If you look at what it looks like right here in the interior, I think that this would cost more, but it's pretty cool. And this is something that's making a lot of headlines right now. Besides that, Tesla also secured a massive contract with power company for its Megapack battery systems. This is big news for Tesla. The company, best known for its line of EVs, will be providing California's Intersect Power with more than 15 gigawatt hours or 15 of its Megapack energy storage systems within the next 5 years. And the contract will once again cost between 2.5 and 3.5 billion dollars. There's also been some talk about how this will help them help improve the technology around the area, supports more renewable options, and they're getting a lot of praise for this. So I think it's very, very cool. One thing worth mentioning is the fact that a Megapack battery unit, which holds 3.9 Megapack hours, can hold an average of about 3,600 homes for 1 hour. So not bad, and this will be very, very useful, at least for the area. So just wanted to call that out. Whereas Tesla right now, we're approaching that 212 support. We'll have to see if this holds. If it doesn't hold, we're going back down to 210 and then eventually 208. And if that breaks, there's going to be a risk of seeing an even bigger drop all the way back down to 205. So I'll be watching those supports. Our resistance is currently going to be around right over here. Watch 213.5 and then 216. If 216 breaks, we're going back up to 220. So watch these levels. If we could get back above 213.5, we could try to push higher. And if we end up losing 212, look for 210. If that breaks, there's going to be a bigger dip. So make sure you watch these supports very carefully as we're kind of in the middle between them. There's a little bit of a dip right now. It is possibly dip a little bit lower if we lose our 20 EMA or 200 EMA. So just be careful. Now, whether or not we get the dip depends on what kind of reaction we get with the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Data report. But I do see a risk of this dipping a little bit more. This could just be a small dip for a higher low, and then we could bounce later on, continue higher as the chart still remains bullish. So don't turn overly bearish. It might just be a little dip back down to one of our key retracement areas, especially the breakout at 208, maybe even lower. And then we could bounce after that later on. Just want to call that out. For SPY, we're dipping a little bit. We're looking at support currently at 550 all the way down to about 549.5. If we fail to hold that, I just want to call this out. We do have this big gap over here. So we're going to be looking at key support at this gap right here at 549.5. If SPY loses this, we're at risk of coming down to fill this gap towards the 543s. That's going to be the lower end of this range. So there is going to be a risk of a big dip down to at least 544 if we end up losing 549. And if we hold above 549.5 and try to rebound, look at resistance around 552. One thing worth mentioning about SPY is we have a possible inverse head and shoulders like structure. So the chart's still bullish, but see how we have like a left shoulder possibly here, head down here. We could be coming down from that right shoulder before we continue higher. That's a strong possibility. So there is a risk of more downside, but that's just a temporary dip for more upside later on. For ES, we also have a very similar structure for the inverse head and shoulders like setup. We'll be watching to see how it reacts. I'm going to check the daily one more time for something. The daily looks a little bit weak right there as we're getting that rejection, so be careful. And then on the 4-hour time frame, basically, I'll be watching the support right here around 55.25, and if that fails, we could be dipping down towards 54.50. We also have resistance around 5600. There is a risk of us dipping lower towards 5500 before we try to bounce, so we still have like an inverse head and shoulders like structure. For SPX, we're trying to push higher on the 4-hour time frame. We look more bullish. We'll just get a rejection near 55.60, or will we end up dipping below 5500? We'll just have to wait and see. It's possible we dip and then we try to bounce, so give that some time. For Nvda, we pushed all the way up to resistance at this 22, just under 24 area. We came just under it. So I said yesterday we're going to push a little higher. Yes, we hit 24 only to reject so far. So watch 121.5 as support. If we hold that, we could try to push higher for 123. If we lose 121.5, I think there's a risk of us dipping back down towards 119. And finally, 116. So just be very careful with Nvidia. There could be a temporary dip, but then we'll see if we get a bounce depending on the data. Bitcoin's been on a bit of a downtrend right here, just a short-term, super short-term downtrend. Watch 59,285. If we break that, we could rebound. If not, we're going to be dipping lower, so watch for that. For the QQQ, we pushed all the way up to about 475 as resistance. If this gets a rejection, you're going to be looking for a move back down towards 466. If we try to break past that, we could continue higher. As of right now, we could be forming an inverse head and shoulders. This could be our left shoulder. This could be our head. And there could be a nice little right shoulder about to form like this. So I'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case. Watch 472 support. If that fails us, I'll be looking for potentially 470. And if we lose 470, I think 464 is likely coming. There could be a dip and then a bounce, so just be very mindful of that. Apple's turning as well at resistance at 225. Watch 221 as key support, and then 220, basically right here, this 223 area. So 223 and 221 are going to be two supports. This could also be forming an inverse head and shoulders, so I'm seeing this all over the place. The IWM has the same thing. We're dipping a little bit. Look at 213 as our resistance. Our key support is going to be around this 209 area. We might dip towards 209 and try to bounce, so watch for that. For AMD, we pushed quite a bit. Now we're starting to retrace. We have potentially 143 coming as support if we lose 145. So it is possible we dip a bit before we try to rebound. If we break past 148, look for basically 151 as resistance. I think we might dip a little bit. We might dip a little bit towards 143 before anything else. Coinbase has this range. Make sure you watch 197 as support and then 202 as resistance. Whichever direction we break will determine the bigger move. Right now, if 197 breaks, there's going to be a bigger fall towards the low 190s. So I see that at risk. For Amazon, we're going to be looking at this support around 175. If that fails us, I'll be looking for 172. If we break past 177, we'll be looking for 180. So I'm looking at this range. If we can't reclaim 177, I do see us tipping to at least 175 and eventually 172. So be careful on Amazon. It might turn a little bit, but the trend is still bullish, even if we do dip a little bit. Let me just go over a few more real quick. Meta got a nice push, pushing all the way up to resistance. We pushed about 538. I said this is tough resistance, and notice how we weren't able to crack this, started dipping a bit. So look at support near 530. If that fails, let's look at 525. We got to get back above 535 to turn back up. Otherwise, it's going to reject. Microsoft came very close to our 200 EMA only to reject. We got to reclaim 420 to turn back up towards 423. Otherwise, it's at risk of coming down to 414. So be careful with that. Google is still below its 20 EMA, so this is at risk of dipping towards 161. Anyways, that's it for my video. Hopefully this video was insightful about what the market's doing. The market may dip a little bit, but only to go higher later on so far. So it's not necessarily the market turning bearish. It's more like the market's just dipping a bit before more potential upside later on. That's so far what the charts are suggesting, even for Tesla and beyond. All right. So thank you for listening. I'll see you guys in a few hours for another update. Tesla to the moon. The long term is very bright. Make sure you watch those key supports I called out, and peace out.